Before we start, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what kind of revenge or family drama stories you enjoy most. And if you like stories like this, don't forget to subscribe because I upload new stories every week. The moment I realized something was seriously wrong in my own house didn't happen during an argument. It happened on a Tuesday night while my 6-year-old son quietly pushed chicken around his plate and asked me a question I still can't forget. "Dad, are we poor now?" Nobody at the dinner table spoke. Not my wife, not my younger brother, not even me. My son looked genuinely confused as he glanced toward the living room where my brother's new gaming system sat connected to our TV. Then he asked the second question. "If we don't have money, why does Uncle Ryan keep buying stuff?" That was the moment something cold settled in my stomach. Because kids notice everything, even when adults pretend nothing is wrong. And looking back now, I should have realized much earlier that my marriage was quietly slipping out of my hands. My name's Daniel. I'm 38 years old, married, 1 son, stable job, quiet life. At least that's what I thought back then. I worked as a logistics supervisor outside Denver. My wife Olivia worked remotely in marketing. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Mortgage paid on time, savings account healthy, family vacations every summer. The kind of life that feels ordinary until somebody slowly starts tearing holes through it. That person was my younger brother, Ryan. Now, Ryan wasn't evil. Honestly, if he had been openly awful, this whole situation would have been easier. Ryan was charming, funny, the type of guy who could walk into a room and instantly make people like him. Unfortunately, he was also allergic to responsibility. By 34, he'd bounced through careers like a man changing TV channels. Bartender, real estate, crypto investing, personal training, podcasting. Every new idea was supposedly life-changing. Every failure somehow belonged to somebody else. And somehow, despite living like a college freshman well into his 30s, Ryan was raising an 8-year-old son named Mason. Mason was a good kid, quiet, nervous, always trying not to cause problems. His mother had moved to Arizona years earlier and barely stayed involved. I think that's one reason Olivia felt sorry for them. The phone call came in February. Ryan sounded desperate. His landlord had officially evicted him after months of unpaid rent. He and Mason had nowhere to go. I already knew what he wanted before he even asked. "Just 2 weeks, Danny. That's all I need." I hesitated. Honestly, every instinct in my body told me this was a bad idea. But then Olivia touched my arm and said quietly, "Mason shouldn't be dragged through hotels." That sentence decided everything. They arrived the next afternoon with trash bags full of clothes, 2 old suitcases, a gaming console, and absolutely no real plan. The first week wasn't terrible.
Ryan acted grateful. Mason and Ethan got along. Olivia kept saying things like, "See, this isn't so bad." But by the second week, small things started changing. Ryan stopped waking up early. Dirty dishes started appearing everywhere. Groceries vanished twice as fast. My electric bill jumped. Every conversation about jobs somehow became delayed until next week. Still, I tried staying patient. He was my brother. Then one afternoon, I came home early from work and found Ryan sitting on my couch wearing my hoodie while ordering food delivery on his phone like he owned the place. "Hey," he said casually. "Hope you don't mind. Mine was dirty." I just stared at him. And from the kitchen, Olivia laughed like it was harmless. That bothered me more than the hoodie. Not because of the sweatshirt, because suddenly I felt like the outsider inside my own house. Over the next few weeks, things got worse in ways that were hard to explain without sounding petty. Ryan started inviting friends over without asking. He stayed up late playing video games downstairs while my son struggled to sleep before school. One night, I opened our fridge looking for leftovers after a 10-hour shift and found almost everything gone. Meanwhile, packages kept arriving at the house. New sneakers, sports betting subscriptions, beer deliveries. But every time I brought up money, Olivia defended him instantly. "He's stressed. He's trying. You're being too hard on him." At first, I kept swallowing my frustration because I didn't want constant conflict. That was my mistake. Resentment grows quietly. And once it starts growing, every little thing feels heavier than it should.
Then came Ethan's birthday. For months he'd wanted one simple thing, a dinosaur-themed water park resort a couple hours away. Nothing extravagant, just one weekend trip. But after reviewing our finances one night, I realized we couldn't responsibly afford it anymore, not while covering nearly every expense for 2 extra people. Telling my son we needed to postpone it was one of the worst conversations I'd had as a father. He nodded quietly and said, "Maybe later then." That should have been the wake-up call. Instead, that same weekend, Ryan ordered nearly $90 worth of wings and barbecue for a UFC night with his friends downstairs. Something inside me snapped. I confronted him in the kitchen after his friends left. "You can spend money on this stuff," I said, "but not contribute anything here?" Ryan looked annoyed immediately. "There it is," he muttered. "I knew you were keeping score." "Keeping score," I said. "Ryan, I'm paying for your food, utilities, gas, and half your kids' expenses." Before he could answer, Olivia stepped between us, and instead of supporting me, she looked at me like I was the problem. "You embarrassed him." That sentence genuinely stunned me. Embarrassed him? Not the man freeloading in my house for over a month. Me. That was the first night I slept on the couch.
After that, the house stopped feeling like home. Ryan barely spoke to me anymore unless Olivia was around. Meanwhile, the two of them became weirdly close. Late-night conversations in the kitchen, inside jokes, wine nights after the kids slept. Nothing inappropriate, but enough to make me feel isolated in my own marriage. Then something happened that completely changed how I saw the situation. One evening, I got home early and overheard Mason talking quietly to Ethan upstairs. Mason said, "My dad says we might live here forever." Forever. I stood frozen in the hallway. Nobody had discussed that with me. That night, during dinner, Olivia casually mentioned that maybe Ryan and Mason should stay a few more months so Mason wouldn't need to switch schools again. I honestly thought she was joking. She wasn't. And the worst part? Ryan couldn't even look me in the eye, which meant they'd already talked about it privately. They'd already made plans inside my house without me. Before I could even respond, Ethan looked up from his plate. "Dad, are we poor now?" Silence. Then he looked toward the living room. "If we don't have money, why does Uncle Ryan keep buying stuff?" Nobody moved. My wife froze. Ryan stared down at his food, and Ethan kept talking in that innocent voice children use when they accidentally expose uncomfortable truths. "You said we can't do my birthday trip because stuff costs too much." Then he looked directly at me. "Dad, you look sad all the time now." I can't even explain what that felt like. Not anger, shame, because my 6-year-old had noticed I was slowly losing control of my own home. Olivia immediately crouched beside him. "Sweetie, it's complicated." "No, it's not," Ethan replied softly. That sentence hit harder than anything else said that night. Ryan quietly grabbed Mason and disappeared into the guest room. And then Olivia turned toward me, looking angry instead of embarrassed. "Did you put this in his head?" I actually laughed in disbelief. "You think I coached our child to say that?" "He shouldn't know about financial stress." "He knows because he lives here, Olivia." That argument exploded harder than any fight we'd ever had. Years of resentment came pouring out all at once. At one point she shouted, "You care more about money than family." And I finally shouted back, "No, I care more about the family I created than the adults draining it." The entire house went silent after that. That night I sat alone in the kitchen at nearly 1 a.m, staring at bank statements and realizing something terrifying. I didn't feel comfortable in my own home anymore. The next morning my father called. Apparently Ethan had mentioned some things during a video call days earlier. For the first time in weeks, I told somebody the full truth. My father listened quietly. Then he said something I'll probably remember for the rest of my life. Generosity without boundaries becomes permission. That sentence changed something inside me instantly. Because he was right. I'd spent nearly 2 months hoping everybody else would suddenly become reasonable. But comfortable people rarely give up comfort willingly. So that Friday, I printed a formal agreement. 3 weeks. Mandatory contribution toward groceries and utilities. Mandatory job applications. Move-out deadline. Or they leave immediately. When I placed the papers on the kitchen table, Ryan looked offended.
Olivia looked shocked. Good. I was done apologizing for protecting my own family. This is unbelievable, Ryan muttered. No, I replied calmly. What's unbelievable is staying here almost 50 days while acting like a guest at a hotel. Olivia immediately pushed back. This feels cruel. You know what feels cruel? I said. Telling our son we can't afford his birthday while funding another grown man's lifestyle. That shut everybody up. For the first time in weeks, nobody could avoid reality anymore. Ryan signed first. Not because he wanted to. Because deep down he knew I was right. Olivia signed last. And honestly, that signature probably saved our marriage. Because once boundaries existed, reality hit fast. Ryan suddenly found a warehouse job within days. Amazing how quickly motivation appears when free housing has an expiration date. A couple weeks later, he found a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was his. The morning they packed up their things, the house felt strangely quiet. Before leaving, Ryan pulled me aside near the driveway. You know, part of me hated you for this. I know. He nodded slowly. But part of me needed it too. That surprised me. Then he looked toward Mason luing boxes into the car. I got too comfortable being rescued. That was probably the most honest thing my brother had said in years. After they left, the tension disappeared almost immediately. The house finally felt peaceful again. That weekend, I took Ethan to the dinosaur water park. And that night, while tucking him into bed, he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You're happy again." Kids always know. Even when adults think they're hiding things perfectly. Olivia and I eventually started counseling after everything settled down. And to her credit, she admitted something important. She'd spent so much time trying to protect Ryan and Mason that she stopped protecting the family already living inside the house. And honestly, I admitted my own mistake too. I waited far too long to set boundaries because I was afraid of looking selfish. But there's a difference between helping family and sacrificing your peace to keep everybody else comfortable. I learned that the hard way. And sometimes the people who get angriest about boundaries are the exact people benefiting from your lack of them.
If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and let me know what you would have done in this situation. Would you have let your brother stay longer, or would you have ended it much sooner?